England today, around 80 houses that were built in the 17th century are still standing. Many of these houses and the documents relating to them have been thoroughly studied, and some of the houses have been carefully restored to their original condition. These early houses in New England are the greatest single source of knowledge about domestic architecture of the 17th century, particularly about details of plan and construction. All 17th century houses were not alike. There was some variety in their floor plans, with each house being shaped by the circumstances of the family and the characteristics of the site. Nevertheless, it's possible to identify the three most common plan types, which were the one-room plan, the two-room plan, and the added lean-to plan. We can even figure out the order in which they probably evolved. The one-room plan was the simplest and the earliest design. It was used in the early cottages at Plymouth and Salem, dating back to the 1620s, and it remained common in smaller and poorer dwellings throughout the century. In the one-room plan, the front door opened into a small entry room, which was then called the porch. In the porch, there was a steep staircase built up against a massive chimney. The large main room was a combination living, dining, cooking room called the hall. In this room, there was a huge fireplace set into the chimney mass. The staircase in the porch led to one large sleeping room upstairs. The second house design was the two-room plan, which was simply the one-room plan with a parlor added at the other side of the chimney and porch. The result was a house with two fireplaces, one in the hall and one in the parlor, that were set back to back in the central chimney structure. In several earlier examples of this design, the parlor was actually built onto an older one-room house, enlarging the smaller house. But more common in later examples, both rooms were built at the same time when families could afford it. Upstairs, there were two sleeping rooms, called the hall chamber and the parlor chamber, after the room below each. The third design, the added lean-to plan, was the result of an addition at the back of the house, making this the largest of the three plans. The lean-to addition had roof rafters leaning against the second-story wall of the main house. The added space was used as a kitchen. The cooking was done in a fireplace added to the back of the central chimney structure. There were two more rooms built on either side of the kitchen. On the cold side of the kitchen, there was a pantry for food storage, and on the warm side, facing the sun on the south, there was a bedroom. Above the kitchen, under the lean-to roof, there was attic space for storage or more sleeping rooms, which you reached by a staircase leading up from the kitchen. These three house plans form a logical evolutionary sequence. The one-room plan was the earliest design. Then, the two-room plan was most common up until around 1650. By the year 1700, the lean-to plan was dominant. However, it's important to note that the one-room plan, although it came earliest, continued to be built throughout the 17th century. So it's best not to try to determine the age of a colonial house strictly by its plan type, which is not a perfect indicator of the house's age. In New England today, around 80 houses that were built in the 17th century are still standing. Many of these houses.
Oh no! The college is announcing a 10% fee increase. Why do they think they can do that? Our fees are already too high.
This is the first time they've raised the fee since I've been a student here. It's only 10%. That's not too bad. And you don't live on campus, so the rent increase doesn't even affect you.
You live on campus, don't you? Do you want to pay a higher rent next year?
Well, I think a new gymnasium is a fantastic idea, so it's all for a good cause. And the new gym is something that will benefit everyone, even you, because students who live off campus can use the facilities. The old gym is really small, and it's always crowded when I'm there. The showers are kind of old and kind of disgusting, and there are no saunas.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I was actually thinking of joining a health club in town, but the membership fee is really expensive there. So for me, it's great news having a nice new gym on campus. The fee increase will come to less than I've had to pay to join a club in town. So who am I to complain?
Oh no, the college is announcing a 10% fee increase. Why do they think they can do that?
Speaking of the uniformity of goods, let me say something about the clothing industry, men's clothing in particular. The greatest factor in the formation of the industry was the Civil War, which created a huge demand for uniforms for the soldiers. The need to outfit an army prompted the government to specify measurements to the manufacturers, and this led to the standardization of sizes. Then, after the war, there was a great demand for civilian clothing for all the returning soldiers. Manufacturers increased production with the help of standardized sizes and new and better sewing machines, and were able to produce clothing to fit most of the male population. By the year 1900, most American men were completely clothed in mass-produced, ready-to-wear garments. They could buy suits, shirts, hats, and shoes with well-established brand names. Women, on the other hand, continued to sew much of their own clothing long after men were buying all theirs ready-made. But this eventually changed, and by 1910, even women could buy every article of clothing ready-made, either from mail-order catalogs or from department stores. One of the earliest mass-produced garments for women was the shirtwaist, which today we call the blouse. The shirtwaist or blouse was very popular because it was suitable for every occasion. The shirtwaist was produced in standard sizes in a variety of fabrics, making it convenient and affordable for women of all social classes. Speaking of the